All righty. Good morning. This is Ron. It's Saturday morning, 10 a.m., a little after 10 a.m. And we'll see if we have any questions. Of course, the last few days we've been talking about us and our comfort level of where we're at, where we are. We continue to speak on feminine energy and what that means, and till we get comfortable with it, I suppose. But a lot's going on in the world, and we're right here in the middle of it. So, any questions? Anything you want to talk about? Any thing that may have grabbed your attention this week?
Ron, good morning. This is Barbara.
Hey, Barbara.
Hi. I was not on Monday evening, so I don't know if you guys happen to comment on this or not, but I was looking at something on the 9th of August, a 2.29 magnitude quake on Friday a.m. Near Elgin occurred again. Elgin is reported the epicenter for these quakes. It's the 10th confirmed quake in South Carolina this year since March. And
Wow.
there was a flurry of 5 quakes in the same area in Kershaw County. So approximately 28 quakes in South Carolina in 2023, and approximately 125 quakes in South Carolina since 1/18/21. So it's like South Carolina represents the laboring room for the nation in terms of quakes. So I just wondered if anybody had commented on that.
No, we did not. I was not aware of it. That's interesting to me. Seems like is this all of a sudden before those dates? Does anyone know how many quakes there had been or has been before those dates? Did all of this happen starting in 2021? Or is this just
I don't
something
know, but
we had?
that's a good question
Yeah.
too.
Is this something we are noticing it though for a reason? That's interesting. We do talk about shaking things up. Things are being shaken up. I could talk about shaking things up. It could talk about realigning things. It can talk about getting people's attention. Any insight, anyone? Any thoughts? What first hit your mind when Bob mentioned this information?
Ron, this is Vermel.
Hey, Vanille.
The first thing that crossed my mind when she said that and she started talking about the different numbers made me think that our
Mm-hmm.
foundations are being shaken. And then when I think about, I remember a while back I had read or seen a news article where the the second person closest to the Pope was here in South Carolina talking. So it makes me think along those lines that things are being shaken. Foundations are being shaken.
Yeah, that's what crossed my mind as well. Thank you, Vanille. I think someone else was about to speak. Pastor, was that you?
Yeah, but I'm good. Premier pretty much said what I was going to off.
Okay.
Not about the Pope, but about things being shaken up.
That's interesting, though. Talk about it from the perspective of South Carolina, though. We've talked about our history as far as slavery and a lot of things, the history of South Carolina.
Ron,
Can I? Yes, ma'am.
in South Carolina, approximately 70% of the quakes occur in the coastal plain. Well, Elgin is not the coastal plain. Elgin is more like, close to the uh, central Midlands type area of South Carolina. So it's kind of odd that it's not occurring along major tectonic plates. What it talks about is that South Carolina's earthquakes relate to the result of something, a reactivation of ancient geologic structures associated with much older tectonic events. So that goes along with the very shaking of the foundation again. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Well, if no further input, maybe just leave it that this is something we'll keep an eye on, and maybe even do some further thoughts and meditations on it. Look at it from a spiritual point. The ancient part, I think, is very interesting. I don't know that says something. I just don't know what right now. But thank you. Good start to the day. Anyone else? Someone sent me a question. The question had to do with conjuring up things, and I had some thoughts on it, but I wonder what you thinking. Conjuring, does it have anything to do when we call up the ancestors? I think was part of the question as well. So, what is conjuring to you? Anybody? Well,
What is it to you, Ron?
well, the first thing that crossed my mind is anything people don't understand, they make it evil. They make it into something evil, and we have grown up through our educational system to understand that is something bad. It means bringing up evil spirits. It means being vindictive and getting people. And I don't think it's that at all. I think the original intent was for good purposes. I think it had to do with maybe calling up spirits, but not in a bad way to hurt people. I think it had something to do with healing people. I do think it has to do with ancestors, but I don't know how. I'm not sure that it's just done to call up the ancestors. But I don't know that link. But I do think there's a link there. But I don't think it has been in the past, since we're talking about ancient this morning. In ancient times, I don't think it was used for evil purposes. I think that was done by people who lack understanding.
Okay, Ron, would that be the okay? Of course, I got something's running through my mind right now. Okay, so how do they conjure them up? Would that be the same as the question I asked about the lady going in and talking to her deceased husband when she was getting ready to go to the doctor? Because, I told y'all that I felt it was something eerie in my spirit, and now she's in a state of depression. So, and I had to talk to her, and I just told her to just stop going in there, talking to him and sitting there waiting for an answer. So would that be the same? I know Reverend Richard explained it, but now that you're talking about that, would it be the same thing?
Well, I don't know enough about it to say, Kathy. I do know this. No, I won't say I know this. My question is her depression due to the fact that she did not get an answer, or that she actually is in the middle of this practice? That could be two different things. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, Ron.
Well,
Kathy.
Yes, sir.
before we get into that aspect of it, let's talk about the act of conjuring and then
Okay.
come back to that. Because I think it may paint a clearer picture of where you're headed with your questions, okay?
Well, can I ask a quick question? Good morning. This is Audrey.
Good morning.
Is there a difference between conjuring and invoking? Or is that the same thing?
Based on what I am about to say after everyone else expresses themselves, it is close. If it's not the same thing, it is so close, it's very difficult to separate them. It's not like they're inextricably tied together, but they are very closely associated.
Other synonyms for conjuring is to ask, to beseech, to entreat, to pray.
Let
Well,
me
anyway.
let me go ahead and do this. Someone sent me a historical article. In that historical article, there was a discussion, and doing an interview with people who were enslaved, there was a story about this man who was said to have been shot out of a cannon 505,000 miles away from Africa to a place in Missouri, where slavery was very prominent and the strongest. That being shot out of a cannon means that he just showed up. Like he came out of no place. When he arrived, he said, "I'm a conjuring man." And the explanation of that from the enslaved person was that he was expressing the power that all Africans have. And they went on, and she went on to say that he helped Lincoln free the slaves in a way that they never could have, and brought into existence things in the earth, in America rather, that never could have existed. And then the one who was writing the article talked about the technology that was brought into this country. And the way the article was written, it was written in a way that said that one of the main reasons for enslaved people being here was to bring technology and a better way of life into this country, but it got bogged down under liberal thoughts or liberal desires. The bottom line is that this enslaved woman said that conjuring meant that they were calling on powers in order to bring change in terms of the end of slavery and to bring technology into existence. The whole idea of conjuring in this particular case was calling upon those who are calling upon the ancestors. And this same principle had men who brought healing, who were conjurers. The same thing happened at the rebellions in Jamaica, in Haiti, and in this country. And after the end of slavery, in terms of the physical slavery, that we begun to see technologies brought into existence that men had never dreamed of. And that came from the association of conjuring. And that conjuring is the association with one who was able to manifest in physical form, uh, uh, um, with a strong connection to the ancestors. And the ancestors are the ones who brought the understandings or the the ideals and the ideals about how this would be brought, how freedom would be brought into existence, and how a new day would come into existence in this country. And what we are beginning to see is a new day politically. We've already seen a new day technologically, but a new day politically. And everything that we call technology, especially those things that have a connection with mathematics and electronics, etc., came from females. The war, the rebellions came from males that were conjurers who were brought here, who were receiving from the ancestors. That's the best I can explain it at this time. I hope it makes sense to you guys. And then we'll get back to what Audrey, Bob, and Kathy mentioned earlier. Any questions about that, or does it make sense?
It makes sense. Prior to that, though, in Akabalon, was this I'm trying to, was it practiced similarly there, for spiritual purposes?
It had to be.
Yeah.
The reason it had to be, Ron, is because the pyramids were constructed. The Nile was redirected. There were flying machines, or flying machines in the tombs in Kemet. That if you think about the technological advances in antiquity, they're only found in places where hieroglyphics have been written, where hieroglyphics were used rather to write, but no other place and in no other language. The entirety of the written language came from hieroglyphics in Egypt. And to this day, they can't read the hieroglyphics, but the hieroglyphic was the foundation of all written language, and most of which was in reference to spirituality, how to be one with the Creator, how to know who you are, as well as the technological advances. We have this thing stuck in our head that technology started in the last 100 years. That's not true. That is no different than saying that we came into existence in the last 100 years. No, that's not true. Technology has been in this earth since beginnings, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Audrey, does that speak to what you were raising? Kathy Neal, back to what you were saying. What happens is, if you look at the classical definitions of conjure, it always referenced something about conjuring up the devil or conjuring up evil spirits. As Ron said in reference to your question, this is not, in the beginning, this was not a negative thing. It was not an evil thing. It was made evil by Europeans, and just let me say it, it was made evil by Europeans, just like everything else that relates to us has been made evil. And we are caught up into a cycle of self-destruction by virtue of being dismissive of anything that the African has done for the benefit of this world that Europeans have said is demonic. We're caught up in that cycle. And it is very difficult for us to free ourselves from that cycle of self-destruction and self-condemnation, from that cycle of self-dehumanizing, that cycle that makes us feel like the only thing that's worth speaking positively about are those things that we were told were positive, as opposed to looking at things from our own perspective through our own eyes. So we have a long ways to go in that regard. So I think that that lady you're speaking of is depressed, not necessarily because she's not getting answers or is getting answers, depressed because her husband is dead. And she talking to him, I don't doubt that. However, it may not be. It's no different than what we've been taught through Christianity. We've been taught so much through Christianity until we feel like we cannot separate ourselves from it, even though it is destructive to us. We know that there is no history at all of the disciples being in museums where the people who lived in antiquity, there are articles, there are writings about them that have been discovered and placed in museums. There are none about the people who have been listed in the scriptures. So having seen that, and also comparing it to a history of where our history and anything pertaining to us has been denigrated, we have an obligation to ourselves to erase, not necessarily erase, but to compare everything we've been told to what's actually written in history. We haven't done that because we are still Europeans. And we're struggling, but we're still Europeans. And whatever Europeans say, that's what's true. If we were Europeans on this line talking the way that we are, then we would be celebrities, because African people would make us celebrities. We are still ingrained, it is still ingrained in us that we are the enslaved servants of Europeans, and we still serve them without to what they do or say about us. It's ingrained in us to serve them. Think about it this way: the clearest representation of a European mindset is not Joe Biden, it's Donald Trump. And there are people who look like us are supporting him, his principles, the ideals that he put out there. And we talk about we are not supporting those ideas, but the power of the African has been overshadowed by the quote unquote fantasies of liberals. And when we begin to disassociate ourselves with the principles of liberals and the principles of the foundation of this country, which Donald Trump's energy represents, then we will begin to see with our own eye. And then we'll begin to see that conjuring simply means that you call the powers of our ancestors, call upon the powers of our ancestors, not only to guide us, but also to give us the understandings of the wisdom that is necessary to bring about a world wherein every individual and collective group of humanity will have opportunity to be as it was intended from the beginning.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Does Christianity put you in a spell?
What are you talking about?
How you don't know you're being manipulated, or someone is really taking over your thoughts and manipulating your thoughts? That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Christianity, Islam, Judaism, European education, your mama, your daddy, you, your children, all of that keeps us in that cell because that's all we know. And I'm not talking about just the people on this line in this engaged in this discussion. I'm talking about humanity. That's all we know. And the majority, the reason, and I'll take the majority back. The reason that it is so powerful is because we're afraid. We're afraid that we won't have a job. We're afraid that we won't be able to survive. We're afraid of everything that we have been threatened with, everything that we have experienced. We're afraid that they are going to come to reality. My greater concern is that young people who are not afraid they're not doing things because they're not afraid. What they don't realize is that you have to be more than not afraid. You have to be active in terms of moving forward to bring all this to an end. We have to get beyond money. A job is money. We have to get beyond careers. What we have been told is a career is something that's above someone who works on a blue-collar job, as we term it. We have to get beyond all of that. Why? Because one of the greatest tools of manipulation is your job. Get you to do and say anything they want with your job. That's one of the greatest tools of manipulation. Matter of fact, your job has a stronghold on you greater than Christianity. Does that make sense, Evan?
It does. So we bought into that. That's the reason why.
Well,
Yeah,
Evan,
we had to have.
well, Evan, let me clear that up. We were forced into that. We were forced into that. Now we have chosen to buy into that. We were forced into that, but then when a clearer picture was being painted as to what was happening to us and the source of it, we had a choice to make. We could buy into that, or we could move to dismantle. And the overwhelming majority bought into it, as opposed to dismantling. A classic example of that is in the 60s when younger people were in the streets demonstrating, or when younger people were registering people to vote, setting up schools and communities, doing all these things to teach us who we are. It was not just the church. It was not just religion, I should say. It was not just the government. It was our parents who had been educated through the system, who said to us, boy, you go get yourself killed, or you're going to end up not having a job, not having a career. That was the fear, because they had seen what has happened. So a decision was made that, no, we're not going to buy into that. And we didn't. But those who bought into that were the ones who had the greater benefit from what we were trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Evelyn?
it
Okay,
does.
and I talk about
Yes,
that so
it
much
does.
because that's what I know. You know, I can't talk about what I don't know. I talk about, I reference those days because that's what I know. That's what I experienced. That's what the history that I've read and made. So I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone
I
else?
have a question. Is it that conjuring got its evil connotation based on Christianity? I mean, I know during the time when people were enslaved, they did invoke the ancestors. And they did certain rituals to do that. But it was made to seem as if it was evil, right? Because
Yes,
of Christianity. And I know
yes,
also that you can invoke some negative energy too, but that's not what was happening with enslaved people. They were just calling on the ancestors for wisdom and support and that kind of thing. But it was made to seem evil, right?
yes, yes. Let me give you an idea of what's happening. The energy that's being projected now that's creating not only the chaos, but at the same time, making visible those things that has been taking place forever, ever since this country been in existence. That energy was not conjured. John did not conjure any energy. Our desire of to be racist is what opened the door for that energy. It was not a ritual that was performed. It was a continuation of a desire to be superior. We don't necessarily have to conjure if we are open. Long before we knew anything, well, long before we as a group accepted anything about ancestors, we were bringing things into existence simply by desire. Now that we understand the power that we have is to invoke or to conjure up the ancestors or solicit the gods and the power from the ancestors. Now that we understand that, we are able, for the most part, to simply talk about the desires that we have for mankind and we see them manifested. That being the case, how much more power will we have access to, or will we be able to invoke if we consciously were calling upon the ancestors to guide us? See, the power is not just with the ancestors. Audrey has the power right now to bring things into existence. And Christianity told us it was evil. They call it magic. So magic supposed to be evil. And magic is a large part of spirituality. Magic comes from a word, majestic. There was majestic power in spirituality, and we have allowed it to go unused because we are afraid that the devil go get us. And this thing has been presented to us in such a form until not only will we not do it in the presence of those who are Christians, we won't even do it at home alone because we're afraid we're going to hell. I remember when my cousin died, and her daughter wanted to talk with her. I was young, but I did it. And I was told that I was going to go to hell if I did, but I did it anyway. And I'm still here. So what am I saying? I would try it regardless of whether or not I was told it was evil. And the reason I did it is because I wanted to see what was going to happen to me. Now I see it differently. I see that that is an innate power that we have. So the question is, are we going to continue to be afraid to access what our Creator has given us for the benefit of humanity? Or are we going to continue to promote white supremacy? Because that's what we're doing. If you're not doing what you are supposed to do in terms of principles of the essence of your origin, then you support white supremacy. It's just that simple. We're afraid to be who we are. We're afraid. Go ahead.
Pastor,
Uh-huh.
I have a question. I want to go back. Good morning. This is Kathy, the other Kathy. I want to go back to Kathy Neal's question because you did not ask her, did she understand what you were saying? And based on everything that you're saying, the grieving process that it sounds like this woman is going through, or grief in and of itself, I won't say process because everyone grieves in their own way. But I have known very few people to grieve and not talk to the deceased, the one that has left, because it's something innate in us that makes us feel closer to them if we can sit in the room and still talk to them. And as a counselor, I've seen this numerous times, so many times I can't even count it. So I don't see anything really wrong with her going in a room talking. I still talk to my dad. I mean, I have a space where I sit and talk to him. No, he's not answering me back, but I have a comfort in knowing his presence is there with me. His presence is with me all the time. So I just wanted to make certain that I just wanted to know how Kathy feels about things now, having heard what she just heard. And I wonder if she feels now that it's okay for the woman to continue to talk to her husband. I don't know if she's actually seeking answers to her grief, but it sounds more like she's seeking comfort. And I just wanted to clear that up and ask how she feels about what she's hearing now.
Okay, Kathy. When I talked to her on day before yesterday, but what happened was she went to the doctor, and then when she was telling him, okay, pray for me, I'm getting ready to go to the doctor so that everything will be all right. But when she went back for the results of the blood work, her blood pressure was elevated real high, and she's got to go back for some more tests. So that right there, like, threw her. It's like, okay, normally he encouraged me. Now I didn't get well, I know she didn't get an answer, but I know she didn't. But she didn't get what she was looking for, the comfort that she was seeking for when she went back. So she said, I'm just so depressed. And I told her, I said, well, can I share something with you? I said, I know you said you had been going, and talking in the room where he died at, and where he slept before he, passed away. And I said, how about let's not talk to him? Just when you get ready to go to the doctor, don't go in that room. And I said, because our mind can play tricks on us. And then we get depressed because we didn't get what we were looking for. So she said, well, thank you for sharing that with me. She said, I won't do that anymore. So that was on day before yesterday. So I'm hoping that now that maybe she won't go in the room and then she won't hit that state of depression again. So I'm hoping that helps.
Okay, because I was just wanting clarity on that too, because I knew we didn't know the whole story, what was going on with her. But Pastor, what are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious.
I think she's grieving, and her depression is coming from grief as opposed to just things not happening the way she wanted to.
It's a
Because
white
even
truck.
when, even
Oh
when,
no, it's not the kind that you a regular you
Uh,
would buy. I don't know what it is.
hello, would you, Mary, would you mute your phone, please?
Oh, I am so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. I thank you. I think that, she is, going through that, the grief period, as you mentioned, and the depression is coming from that. And, she has been depressed before. I guarantee you, if you talk to her, you'll find out that during his illness before he died, she had bouts with depression because she didn't know what she was going to do without him. That's what it sounds like to me anyway. So those are my thoughts on that.
And it was she couldn't see it, but I could see it.
Yeah.
And I
So-
was there for her because I knew, sooner or later that she was gonna call me. But when she started getting to that point to where she was going in that room talking all the time, I could see the depression setting in more. But still, again, she couldn't see it. So I just, shared with her, how about let's not go in the room and talk and call him no more. And so because I could see what it was doing, and so I just shared that with her. And she said, thank you for sharing that with me. She said, I'll do that.
Yeah. And see that those are the things that has to be, that Christianity, that religion has given us, that needs to be unraveled. Because I also believe that she was made to feel like her prayers were not sufficient enough to keep him here.
Right.
That Jeff also brings about depression. So we have to really examine quite a few things that we have been given in our lives, over the course of our lives, that has very little, if anything, to do with spirituality and how we should approach things. Yesterday, I was sitting in a funeral. My first cousin died in DC. And her, the service, she was a Catholic. So I'm sitting in this Catholic church with this Catholic congregation. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice that said to me, she said, James, I see it differently now. And it was almost like I could feel her smile when she said that. And I knew exactly what I was hearing, but it's almost like my brother who was sitting next to me heard it as well, because he turned and looked at me with a funny expression on his face. What do I believe was being said? Because I heard different things sitting there. I believe that she was expressing that she saw how phony everything that she had embraced as being real, how phony it really is. And I got the feeling that this connection that we as a people have with the foundation of slavery, which is Catholicism, I think that we're beginning to see the manifestation of it having been dismantled. Why do I share that with you? I share this with you mainly because of what Kathy brought up about this lady and her husband. It's hard for us to embrace that people from the other side, as we put it, for those who are one with us, it's hard for us to embrace that they speak to us, or that we can hear that voice, or we can experience the presence of their voice, I should say. It's hard for us to accept that because we've been so indoctrinated with how evil that is. And it's not marrying your cousin. It is the devil talking to you. That's what we've been told. And every one of us on this call, I guarantee you, have lied to ourselves. We know it. We know who it is. We know it's our parent. We know it is our cousin. We know it is our friend. When we have those experiences of them talking to us, we know that. But when we were ingrained in Christianity, we weren't going to really talk about it because we didn't want anybody to say that we were evil, or we didn't talk about, we made no expressions about talking with them or calling on them because we didn't want anybody to say that we were going to hell because we were evil. We are the ones who have to excuse me, find within ourselves the strength to be real, not real based upon what we've been told, but real based upon what we know. We have these experiences. We grew up with these experiences. Is there anyone on this line, and this is not rhetorical, is there anyone who grew up in the African community and you never heard anyone talk about having a conversation or a visitation from those who had transitioned before them? Anyone? Every one of us have had that experience. Every one of us grew up with that experience. But we sought to abandon it the more education we got and the deeper we got involved with Christianity. So I'm going to say something, and I would that you would help me clean it up, clear it up. It is impossible to have a desire to process with your eye, to process things spiritually. It's impossible to do that and have and hold on to rather all of the principles that we were taught through Christianity. It's impossible to do that because the principles that we were taught condemns us to hell, even by thinking about we have a third eye. Does that make sense? You can't do it.
Yeah.
You will never know who you are. Go ahead, Ron.
Nothing, I was just agreeing with you. And
Yeah.
hold on to both. Right.
You can't. You can't do that. And I say to you, think about it this way. We've held on to those principles that we were taught through religion all of our lives. And we have made zero progress in terms of bringing humanity to a place of balance. We have made zero progress in what we call race relations. Tried all of these things, and none of them changed anything. So why not? Why not be who you were created to be and watch how quickly we bring a manifestation of balance to this earth. We have to stop being who we were told we are and start being who we are. And there is a huge difference between the two.
Pastor, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Reverend Richard, could you please repeat what you said about processing something or what you see with your physical eye? And you said something was impossible, because if I heard you correctly, I disagree with what you said. I just want to hear it again, if you don't mind.
Okay. What I said was, it is impossible to be who you were created to be and hold on to all of the principles of Christianity that we were taught, because we were taught that your third eye doesn't exist. And you're evil if you talk about having a third eye. It's impossible for you to be spiritual and hold on to all the principles of Christianity that we taught. George?
Oh, well, you said it differently this time, so I would have to agree with what you said. And I'm glad
Well,
I
tell me
asked
how I
for
said it the first time.
clarification on.
Tell me how I said it the
You
first
said
time. 'Cause
something. You said about your visual eye. You can't. If I heard you correctly, Reverend Rich, and someone help me out if you heard what I heard. That what you see with your physical eye, you cannot process that spiritually. It's almost impossible.
No, I don't think I said that. Did I say that?
This is from Al. George, he didn't say physical eye. He just said eye when he
Okay,
first.
well, what did he? Whoever the young lady who's speaking, what did he say? He didn't say physical eye. He said eye. What did he say behind that?
That it was impossible.
So hold on to the principles of Christianity and process through your eye. Is that not what I said?
Okay,
So-
okay then.
Yeah, somebody help
all
us
right.
here, because I do want to make sure that I'm speaking clearly, and sometimes I do misspeak. All of us do, I suppose.
But
And
that's
that's
what
not
you
what I would like to do.
That's what you said when I told you what the lady said, or what I said.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
well, I would have to agree with that. Thanks for clearing the young lady who clarified that. Thank you for speaking. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, George.
Ron,
Yes, sir. This
you about
during during the course of the week, ST and I had a conversation, and we were talking about where we are and being in a place we've never been before, really, and not being totally comfortable with that place. And these are my words. Yes, if you're on the line, you could say it the way you see it, and what that meant, what that felt like, how that looks as far as how we see things and our approach to things, and of course, it has changed our prayer life, and a lot of times the discussions it resonates with you, you're in tune with it, but doesn't mean you always understand it. And I think even though the problem is not possibly, part of the problem is the thing that we became comfortable with, and this is me talking, I'm not talking for us now. Part of the things that I was comfortable with were the lies, the things that I was taught was truth. But in my own way, I could see them. And it created a place of comfort. And my conclusion to it is I have not reached a place of total comfort with me. Because what this says is if it resonates with me, it says that this is in me. But if it's in me, it still hasn't created that comfort zone that I am accustomed to. And maybe that will never come again, and maybe it will. Maybe that false security being taken away is the comfort. So that part of me that I'm not familiar with or not comfortable with is the spiritual part that I'm not aware of. So I hear Pastor when he said embrace who we are, that is still being discovered, at least in me. And Anybody else? Any thoughts on that? 'Cause it's a good point, being comfortable who we are, and anyway, let me leave it there before I mess it up.
Ron, this is Evelyn. I feel the same way you and S do. When I was in religion, at church, I think I slept. But now, since I'm on this journey with the family, the faith family, I don't even sleep at all anymore. It's like, I don't even know. It's just, I can attest to what you're saying.
And I know we're going to get there. I know. It's a combination of seeing something new and turning loose of what was. And so when Pastor talked about Christianity and whatnot, yeah, you ask me, and I say I turn that loose. But there are residual things out there that you really I don't know what I'm saying. It just not all done at one time, I guess. And sometimes you don't recognize that.
I think the discomfort or the problem with becoming comfortable is because we don't know who we are. We don't know what it feels like, what the experience is to be African. We have been European forever. We don't know how to be anything else except European in our thoughts and our actions. And the struggle is trying to differentiate between who we were created to be and who we were molded into being. The thing that was said about the rats, this through the teacher's thread. This lady talked about the rats there were some rats who were put in a cage. And every time they tried to leave the cage, they were shocked. And it got to the point where they never tried to leave the cage again because they had been conditioned that they would be shocked if they left the cage. So then the rats reproduced, and they took those babies and separated them and put them in a different cage, but they never closed the door. And the rats never tried to leave. The baby rat never tried to leave because they had been genetically stimulated. They have been genetically conditioned not to leave the cage. That's the same type of trauma that we are experiencing right now. We have been conditioned for so long to be Europeans in the minds, in our mind, in the way we think. And it is difficult for us to see who we're supposed to be because we have never known truly who we were supposed to be. A lot of us have traveled this journey or have sought this journey, sought out the essence of who we're supposed to be. But the most damning part of it is that we were being reconditioned to stay in the cage with the gates open all the time and didn't realize it. Even though Black History Week, month, or whatever it is, was done for the express purpose of telling us about ourselves. The only thing that we were being told about ourselves was that we were enslaved people. So there was no reconditioning as to who we are. And the more we try to fight, why is it that slavery doesn't go back any further than the ships that arrived in Charleston? Why is it that we only have a slave history? We are more than that. It was the Black churches who would not go beyond slavery because they were afraid to call themselves Africans because they had been told by the missionaries by the white preachers that they are not Africans. They have been told by the black seminaries who were influenced by the white seminaries that they were not Africans. And it was difficult to get us to embrace the ancient history that we have because of that. And right now, there are people on this line who are very uncomfortable with being called an African. And it's simply because you still are a European in your mind. And the European, when you talk to a European and they tell you, you say to them, you can have everything you got. You can be all your billions of dollars, you can have it, keep it. But just change places with me in terms of the color of your skin. They will not do it. So what am I saying to you? When you have a European mindset, you don't even want to be black. You don't even want to be African. You're uncomfortable with that because all you see in your head is what a European has told you. And that is that Africans are heathens, that Africans are pagans, that they are worshipers of multiple gods, and we need to Christianize them. That's all you know about the African, which means that that's all you know about yourself. And the moment that we get to a place where we at least begin the journey of understanding our heritage, not from the slave ships in Charleston or Savannah, but based upon what transpired in the kingdom of the Cushites, and see who we really are. That is when we begin to, now hear me well, begin to process as an African, to process with the power of Kabbalah, as opposed to processing with the weakness of Europe. That is the struggle. That when we say we have a hard time embracing, it's because we having a hard time disposing of the energy of the European that has been instilled in us for so long. Even with the cage door open, we still refuse to leave the gate. To leave the cage. Does that make sense, Ron?
Partly. I see what you're saying.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to think. What I'm saying though is not a fear thing. It's not not a desire to hold on to anything. It's just
neither one of those I said. I didn't say it was a fear, and I did not say it was a desire.
What I'm describing is being in the ocean, dog paddling and not seeing land, and never not knowing. You know, you want to keep you're going to keep going. You have no choice because you got to see who you are. You got to see this to an end. There is, when I was a kid, you talk about the ancestors. When I was a kid, on both sides of the family, on my mom and my dad's side, I listened to the old people sit down and talk about spiritual things and talk about the people that had died and talking to them. And I remember my aunt saying to my mom, "Why does mama always come to you? Why does she say things to you? And why does she tell you to tell me things?" She said, "Because you are afraid of spiritual things. You don't want to see her. You want to see her, but you don't. And she can't come to you." And I remember thinking about that. That stuck with me and still stick with me. I'm 65 years old. So it has always been there. And the thing of the rats really relates to it. But at the same time, what I'm trying to say is, I want to get there. I want to see this thing and see the other side of it. see the other side of me. It just, I guess, maybe not coming as rapidly as I desire it to. And you're right about the desire. I've always pretty much gotten things I desired. This is different though for some reason, and maybe I already have it and don't know it, but this is just different. That's all. And I don't know how to explain. I don't.
Well, what I'm saying, Ron, I'm not saying you're afraid. Or anyone for that matter. I'm not saying it's fear that's keeping it there. I'm not saying that there is a refusal to let it go. But what I am saying is that if you are a glass and that glass is 8 ounces and European indoctrination is 7.9 ounces in that glass, and you only have 0.1 ounce of who you are because that's enslavement. And you're struggling to see who you are and where we are now. We may be, now it may be 6.2 in the European in that glass. And the rest of it is knowing who you are. It's still a struggle to get past that 6.2. It's still a struggle. Why? Because not only were you and the rest of us indoctrinated with the European education as well as religion within a European society that is strictly controlled for the benefit of Europeans. All of us, for the last 700 years, have been in that type of indoctrinated environment. It is extremely difficult it's one thing to see it, it's another thing to live it. And the reason it's so difficult to live it is because we're cramped inside of that glass with it. And our whole lives are governed by that European mindset. And the principles that are governing not just this society, but the entire world are the principles that have been devised by Europeans for the express purpose of convincing the world that they are superior to everyone else in the world, especially the African. With that type of indoctrination over that period of time, it does indeed take desire to do it. And with the difficulty of it, it can be done. And the can be done is by desiring it and making no effort to know what it looks like. Just desire to be who you are, who you were created to be. Because if we start nitpicking things around us in this society that we want to be disconnected from, now we are connected to them more than ever, because the very thing that we say we are not going to be is what we become. The thing that we desire to be is who we are. And all of those principle and the attachments rather that we have with those ideals of that European mindset began to lessen their hold on us because we become stronger in regards to our attachment to our reality. Right now, we are far more attached to a Kabbalah than we have ever been in the course of our lives. Why? Because we have traveled the journey from the beginning over 4 million years ago to where we are now. And we're doing it consistently and constantly. We're doing it every single day, especially the 3 days that we are together. And of course, there are those who are uncomfortable with what we talk about because we're not talking about Jesus. Yes, we are. We're talking about spirituality. And that whole idea that you got to talk about or got to quote a scripture is indoctrination within itself. if you are the written word, why you have to quote it word for word verbatim? Because the word is constantly being written within you and by you. If your intent is for the express purpose of bringing humanity to a place of unicity. So the whole psychology of it is to make you feel like you are a Negro, you are an African, you are a colored man. Make you feel that way without you ever becoming that. You can call yourself anything you want to, but that does not make you it. What makes you who you are is when you begin to process based upon the principles that govern who you are. If you process through hatred, you have a European mindset. If you process through love and kindness, you have an African mindset. That the processing of the principles that make who you are is the very thing that frees you from being afraid to come out of the cage. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It does.
So, Pastor, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Go ahead.
So, did religion have us just run until we did not see who we were? It kept us in church 24/7. It's like we were chasing fool's gold. We thought we were about to, get the golden carrot or whatever. And that was its purpose, right? To chase external things instead of knowing who we are.
Yeah, see, religion is just a part of it. It's more than religion. It's more than Christianity. It's more than Judaism or Islam. That's just a part of it. Those who are in tune to the spiritual nature of themselves are drawn more tightly to religion. But there are a group of people who see no value in religion, and they think that they are free, yet they are in the same boat with those of us who have been drawn to religion. The difference is that we call it Jesus, we call it God, they call it money, they call it a job, they call it success. But the principles are the same. Promote European superiority. That's what the principles do. It doesn't matter whether you're in business, religion, all of it is business, by the way, but it doesn't matter whether you're in education, whether you're a doctor or whether you are an auto mechanic. All of it promotes the same thing. So it's not, the society has been organized with a tapestry that reveals a picture of European superiority. And that tapestry has been brought together with everything within the confines of the society. And when you, regardless of which aspect of society that you find yourself functioning in, it doesn't matter. All of it does the same thing. And when we start talking about the principles of Mayat, and then we began to see that the principles of Mayat is nothing that you need to read or have to read, and put it that way, that you have to read. The principle of Mayat is something that you have to live more. I'm not saying you don't read it, but I'm saying that the strength of it is your life, because that's who you were created to be. When we began to do that, it become easier to see the societal bondage that has been brought into existence to keep us in bondage. The more that we are able to embrace the reality that we are the children of the Son, that we are, and I don't mean the S-O-N, I mean the S-U-N, that we are the children of the Son, and that We are the essence of a Kabbalah. The more we embrace that, the more beneficial we are to all of humanity. The more beneficial we are to this earth, the earth consciousness. The more we are able to embrace the reality of the essence of Kabbalah. Not most, but a lot of the things that I have read, a lot of the things that we've taught, some of you struggle to embrace it, and I struggle to embrace. But when it resonates, it doesn't bother me whether or not I can regurgitate it. It doesn't bother me at all because it resonates, meaning that my soul has embraced it, and I hold on to that, and that has granted me not only the power, but it also granted me a deeper desire to continue this journey. And right now, I do believe that I'm accessing more power of spirituality than I ever accessed in my life, and I believe that I experience more when we talk about living outside of the body. It's not meaning that you leave the body, but I experience the spiritual essence of who I am with a less emphasis on identifying myself with this body. The body is the vehicle. It is no different than 188 Fever Place is the name of the house that we live in, or it locates the house that we live in. This body that you look at when you see me and call it James Richard, this is no different than the address of my house. This is where I live. This is not who I am. I don't at this moment know how else to express that unless there are questions. Thank you. Or comments.
Well, good morning, everyone. Reverend Richard, one of the things I want to say is, and you said it last week, whenever we become closed-minded, we take on the personality of the European. And in processing that, whenever I am closed-minded, and I'm not closed-minded in a conversation, yet there are times when I am closed-minded. I may be in a traffic jam, and it's going to affect my money. And I become so closed-minded, I can literally feel my arteries hardening up. I can feel my white cells and red cells going back and forth with one another, and whatever cell gives my body oxygen, I can feel that just by being closed-minded. And if you don't think that can happen to you by being closed-minded, just do the experiment. Let someone say something that is righteous, and you do everything in the world to make it difficult for them. Just practice it and tell me what you feel going on in your body. So that's one of the things that I came to grips with, why it's not good to be closed-minded. I saw a situation where a homeboy of mine, he and his family got a swimming pool, and a little baby jumped off the diving board, and one of the parents said, "Oh, she is fearless." And the other parent stated, ain't gonna be jumping off this diving board, ain't gonna be jumping off the foundation. And that other parent was saying it from the aspect of, I don't want to see anyone get paralyzed. And the other parent was saying, it's 10 feet of water. And I could just, and in hearing that, I can feel my body constricting, like, can y'all just work with this individual? What that individual is saying makes sense. And if it was the female that was saying ain't no jumping. All of a sudden, we see the female as spirituality, yet in this case, Reverend Richard, it was the male. And what he was saying, it just made sense. And the thing that he said was, this pool is for relaxation and pleasure. Don't turn this weapon where it bites us in the butt. So whenever we elect to be closed-minded, we become that European, and the European male leads in heart attacks and strokes. So when we become closed-minded, that is our introduction to a heart attack and stroke. Thank you.
Well, I want to say this for the benefit of those who were not on when I made that statement. Being closed-minded means that you have a mindset of the European. And the mindset of the European is closed-minded in that everything is centered around the superiority of the European. That's a mindset, not an individual person. I want everyone to understand what we're saying when we talk about that. So I implore each of us when we make statements like that, let's help each other to remember that everyone on the phone may not have necessarily been there when we made that kind of statement. Thank you. Anyone else?
Can you elaborate on what you said about us being children of the sun, the S-U-N?
Yes, when I say that we are Africans are the children of the S-U-N, the sun. When the Greeks called Ethiopia, started calling the land Ethiopia, that meant the land of the burnt faces, of the burnt face, meaning that the face had been burnt by the S-U-N, the sun. And in addition to that, we, in our existence in the kingdom of the Kushites, more specifically in Kemet, recognized that we are children of the sun because it is from the sun that our life and the life of everything else is sustained. And that is the principle that involved the zodiac through which the sun travels, the different houses of the zodiac through which the sun travels through the 12 phases. And that is where the Christian resurrection came from, the S-O-N, as opposed to the S-U-N. So when I say children of the sun, I'm talking about children of Kabbalah. I'm talking about children of Africa because of the burnt faces, not anything more than that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a comment. Pastor, I have a comment pertaining to what Audrey just asked. Remember Earth, Wind, and Fire made the song, "We Are People of the Mighty," and they would say that we are people of the mighty, mighty people of the sun, S-U-N. In our heart lies all the answers to the truth you can't run from. So those who listen to old school music, Earth, Wind, and Fire was talking about that a long time ago. And
Yes.
We didn't realize that it was the S-U-N instead of the S-O-N. That's all I want to
Yes.
say.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Ron?
Yes, sir. Okay, good discussion. The place to pause for the day. Any questions or comments you guys have, please jot them down or either send them to me or someone. We'll start there tomorrow, okay?
Right,
Thanks
thank you.
again.
Hey, Ron, quick
Yes, sir.
question for y'all. some of you all may know Monique's brother has been in the hospital for about I don't know, but he's been in the hospital. Y'all check on Monique and force her to relax. Somebody come by the house, eat some shrimp fried rice with her, force her to relax. Because Monique the pillar of that family now. And sometimes you can spread yourself so thin out here, you ain't thick in the areas that matter. So, I don't know, because that's a very private family. But I just know he's in the hospital. I don't think he has any, I think the ventilator on him. Yet, y'all check on Monique and someone tell her, slow down a little bit. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, George. Yeah, Monique and I have talked the last couple of days, and I did not share the news because she did not ask me to. It was, like you said, she's very personal, and so I appreciate you doing it. You guys be in prayer for her. Her brother's name is Paul. Okay, so so I guess that's enough about that. But anyway, be in prayer for them, and hope you have a great day. Thank you. Thanks again, George.
Thank you,
Bye.
George.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Linda.
everyone.
George,
Bye.
your wife.
Bye.